Good evening, you're watching London Live News at 6 with Alicia Edwards. Coming up tonight, the Elizabeth line gets an opening date for services at Bond Street Station. In national news, the IMF, in a rare interjection, calls out the Chancellor's tax cuts on Friday, telling the government to rethink the plans, with the Bank of England also stepping in to fix the disastrous mini-budget. We'll have an update on London's weather in the next 10 minutes, plus pop star Sanita on women's safety in the capital as a new app is launched. She's here with more. And the pub musical is back in the West End as the Choir of Man returns to offer audiences an alternative musical night out. All of that on the way before 7 o'clock, but first this evening, some of the main stories for the capital. An investigation has been launched after one of Stephen Lawrence's killers reportedly got hold of a mobile phone and sent selfies from his cell to friends outside. David Norris has been placed in segregation, and the Ministry of Justice has confirmed it is investigating the alleged security breach, warning that prisoners found with phones can expect longer jail terms. 5 men were arrested over the murder of 18-year-old Stephen Lawrence, who was stabbed to death in Eltham in 1993. David Norris and Gary Dobson were given life sentences in 2012 after being found guilty of murder. The opening date for the Elizabeth line at Bond Street Station has finally been revealed. Subject to final approvals, the Central London station will begin taking passengers from the 24th of October. It will offer greater access to the West End with entrances at Hanover Square and Davies Street. To begin with, train services will run every 5 minutes. 2 men have been found guilty of murder after they broke into a cannabis factory and attacked the occupant. Shaddai Smith and Jason Sabran were found guilty of the murder of 21-year-old Renatu Gessi. The court heard how both men had been part of a gang who targeted a property in Hounslow. They now await sentencing. A forensic artist has created this image of a woman whose body was pulled from the Thames by Vauxhall Bridge 45 years ago today and has never been identified. Missing Persons charity Locate International worked with an artist, Hugh Morrison, to create the image using photographs which were taken at the scene. The woman's body was found at the bottom of the stairs leading to the South Bank by Vauxhall Bridge. The pound has tumbled again today after the International Monetary Fund criticised the government over its plan for tax cuts. In an extraordinary statement, the IMF said the proposal was likely to increase inequality and adds to pressures pushing up prices, urging the Chancellor to re-evaluate. In another unprecedented move, the Bank of England also launched an emergency UK government bond buying programme today to prevent borrowing costs from spiralling out of control. The bank announced it was stepping in to buy government bonds at an urgent pace. The pound tumbled again to $1.05, almost 1.6% against the dollar, after climbing back to around 1.08 yesterday, following the initial nosedive on Monday. The withdrawal of mortgage products hit unprecedented levels overnight, according to Analysys Moneyfacts, a financial information service, which said that 935 mortgage products were taken off the shelf compared with a day earlier. The Chancellor has previously insisted he's confident his tax-cutting strategy will deliver economic growth. Well, Sir Keir Starmer said the Tories had completely lost control.
This, unlike other fluctuations in the market, is a self-inflicted wound. These were the deliberate decisions of the government on Friday to have tax cuts for those earning hundreds of thousands of pounds, and it's resulted in prices going up, mortgages going up. They've lost control of the economy, and people looking at their mortgages, looking at their prices this morning, will be worried sick, I think, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're not a little bit angry that the government has lost control of the economy, a self-inflicted wound, and they're now picking up the bill.
There we are, Sir Keir Starmer there. Well, Deputy Leader Angela Rayner closed the Labour conference in Liverpool today by saying the Conservatives, who claim to be the party of business, had sent the economy free-falling with a slapdown from the IMF.
The Conservative Party are no longer pretending to be competent and stable. Today's Tories will plunge us into chaos in pursuit of their dogma, divide the country to rule it, and regards rules as for you and not for them. I mean, they said tough on crime. They brought crime to number 10. Defenders of the free market, the market's in free fall. England's green and pleasant land, frack it. From the party of stability to causing earthquakes, from the party of business to a slapdown from the IMF, from the party of serious government to the party of parties. When interest rates were low and borrowing was cheap, they sacrificed public services for austerity. Now they're borrowing just as interest rates are soaring. To think this was the party that claimed they were for sound money.
Well, the Labour leader also condemned the comments made by MP Rupert Huck about the current Chancellor as racist and wrong. Huck, the MP for Ealing Central and Acton, has been suspended from Labour after speaking at a fringe event at the party's conference and said Kwasi Kwarteng was superficially black.
I'm very glad that the Labour Party, under my leadership, suspended her straight away. We took very swift action. It now does go under our rules into an independent investigation. That's the process in place for all allegations, and we need to let that take its course. But I've been very clear. My own view is it was racist, and I'm pleased that the Labour Party acted very, very swiftly. Right thing to do.
Rail passengers are being urged only to travel if necessary on Saturday because of strike action. Members of the RMT, ASLEF, Unite and the TSSA will stage a coordinated walkout, causing huge disruption to services. A reduced timetable has been published showing that just 11% of rail services will run, with some areas having no trains at all. It will be the first time the unions have walked out on the same day, so services will be more significantly disrupted than on previous strike days. Londoners have been urged to get their flu and COVID booster vaccines, as public health experts have warned of an unpredictable winter. The capital's regional director of public health called on those eligible to come forward for their jab amid fears that rising cases of both viruses could put pressure on the NHS. It comes as the capital continues to lag behind other regions when it comes to COVID vaccination. A larger-than-life sculpture of an anti-colonial hero has been unveiled as part of the newest artwork on Trafalgar Square's fourth plinth. Antelope by Samson Kambalu depicts John Chilimbwe, a Baptist preacher who was killed in an uprising in Mwali in 1915.
Big figure is Chilembwe, Pan-Africanist John Chilembwe, who died in 1915 in an uprising fighting colonial injustices. One of them was the rule that forbade Africans from wearing hats in front of white people. The uprising, he made a photograph with his friend. They were simply standing side by side wearing hats, and he distributed this photograph amongst his followers as a political stance to say we are equal to white people. So I can wear a hat in front of a white person. Of course, he was killed months later, but his message lived on. The antelope is a symbol of generosity. So he's not only proposing equality and injustice, but he's also proposing actually a radical economy right in the middle of the empire. Who gets to wear a hat is a question that we still have today. The hat can represent, it's a metaphor for many things. Who gets to wear a hat now? Hence we have movements like Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd movement. His act of protest is still relevant today, and I'm glad that I can carry it forward. I can carry his message to contribute to the fight for a better world.
There we are, Samson Kambalu there in Trafalgar Square today. Right, now let's take a quick look at the weather. Dropping down to 10 degrees overnight, but staying dry for the most part. The rain making an appearance just in time for rush hour tomorrow morning, clearing by lunchtime, making way for some sunny spells in the afternoon. Highs of 15 degrees. Looking ahead to Friday, it's a couple of degrees warmer, but more rain on the way for Friday evening. Some downpours overnight into Saturday, clearing up again by the afternoon, and a bright and sunny day is expected on Sunday with highs of 18 degrees. Now, just before the break, the RSPCA is appealing for information after 5 puppies, thought to be from 2 separate litters, were found abandoned in South London. They were shut inside a clear plastic box with red handles and a crack on the lid in Buckfast Road in Morden on Sunday. The puppies were rushed into RSPCA care, with 2 believed to be less than 1 week old, as their eyes were still closed. The charity is now appealing for more information. It's time for a break now, but don't go anywhere, because coming up, pop star Sunita on a new way to get home safely, plus her return to the world of romance as she joins the celebrity dating agency.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Hello there, welcome back. Time now for a look at some other stories affecting Londoners today. Royal Mail workers are to stage a further 19 strikes in the next 2 months in a dispute over pay and conditions. The union said it will have a dramatic impact and will cover peak mail periods such as Black Friday, Cyber Monday and the Christmas build-up. A Royal Mail spokesperson said it is losing £1 million a day and further strikes will only make their financial position worse. And Virgin Atlantic has scrapped gendered uniforms and will instead allow crew to choose the workwear they feel most represents them. The airline has reversed a policy which required pilots, cabin crew and ground staff to wear a specific uniform based on their gender. Staff will now be given a free choice between Virgin's burgundy uniform, a blazer and trousers with a tie, or its famous red uniform, traditionally consisting of a jacket and a skirt. New research has shown that 8 in 10 women who visit pubs, clubs and bars say that they carefully consider their safety when planning how to get home. A further 2/3 say they plan their route home before heading out for the night. There are now warnings that the cost of living crisis could also be impacting women's safety further. Well, pop star Sunita has personally experienced issues with safety when travelling alone and told me her concerns as we head into the darker months.
Well, I am so cautious that I have this thing where I don't like to walk anywhere once it gets dark. You know, I won't even walk around the corner or walk my dog, you know, for her nighttime little to do our business. I won't go all the way to the park and it's only across the road because, you know, you just don't feel safe. So I, you know, use cabs, I use Ubers, I, you know, will have a lift with a friend. But I don't even feel safe walking like from public transport because you've still got to get home from there, you know. But luckily, this app, I think, is going to change everything, the Walk Safe app, which the Budweiser Brewery Group have partnered in, because it allows us to have, it gives us an escort almost. The app will track your steps home. It will map your route home, helping you to avoid any sort of dangerous areas or unsafe areas, also show you the shortest, quickest routes home. And it also has an SOS button. So if you feel unsafe or you encounter any danger, you can press that button and help will come hurtling to you, which is massive. You know, I think, you know, for myself, for my daughter, because, you know, I'm always excessively worrying about her, and she's 16 now, so she wants to be able to go out to the cinema with her friends locally and things that, you know, shouldn't be dangerous, seen as a dangerous activity. So it just takes a lot of the anxiety out of that, and I think it's a brilliant invention.
Absolutely. I mean, we hear more and more now about the struggles people are having with the cost of living crisis. Obviously, you mentioned there the safer ways to get home being avoiding maybe public transport and going for those taxis and different ways of getting home that are the more expensive options.
They are expensive, and that's the thing, and the prices are going up all the time. You know, and there's the surges depending on what time of day or night it is. And you don't want to find yourself sort of unstuck thinking, well, actually, I can't afford that, so I'm going to risk it and I'm going to walk. Well, now, you know, hopefully that is not going to be a risk. It's going to be a feasible, economical, safe thing to do, to walk home and have this app sort of accompanying you and also reassuring your loved ones, because, you know, people at home or your friends that you've just left, you can let each other know exactly where you are, when you're setting off, where you're setting off from, what your ETA is, and they can follow your entire journey. And I just think it's going to make such a huge difference, because we don't want to stay at home. I mean, the old days, I did a show last year, and we went into universities and we talked to different women of all ages. And it was surprising the amount of women who don't feel safe on a night out. But the solution in the old days used to be, well, then just stay at home. You know, as soon as it gets dark, the best way to be safe is to be at home, you know, like a good girl. Well, we don't want to be just safe. We don't want to be safe at home when we want a night out and we want to go for a Budweiser or whatever it is, celebration, or meet our friends and loved ones. We want to be able to be out and safe like everyone else.
Over the years, you mentioned obviously having concerns about your daughter. When you look back at your time in London longer ago, how has things changed for you in the way? Did you used to have these concerns about travelling home, or were you less worried about it?
think when I was super young, you know, I think super young is also like kind of super ignorant when ignorance is bliss. And I was just so excited to be out and about that I wasn't worried. But, you know, my mother was extremely worried. And so I would get into trouble regularly because just being 5 minutes late was like a huge crime, because if I didn't get there the time that she expected me and that she knew it should take me to get there, she would start having anxiety attack. Oh no, what's happened? You know, this was before mobile phones and things like that. So, you know, my mother would genuinely be like anxious and upset. So by the time I sort of breezed in 5 minutes later, sort of thinking, oh yes, hi, I'd be in huge trouble because I'd caused that much concern. I've grown up to be that woman now, myself with my own child. But I don't want her to have the fear of God in her. I don't want her to feel that she can't have freedom and be with her friends and have fun. And so I think that the app's going to help me as a mother, and also help her to be able to go out and enjoy herself, you know, and know she's safe, and for me to know she's safe as well.
Yeah, technology making a huge difference now. Well, Sunita, one of the reasons that you might be out late in the coming weeks, you are taking part in Celebs Go Dating. What's made you join the agency?
Yes. So it's so exciting. I've joined the agency, so they're going to be setting me up with different appropriate and amazing gentlemen, I hope. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited to be dating. You know, it's a good time for me in life at the moment. I've got a new single out called Do It To Me Baby, which has been nominated for an award with Boysdales. I'm dating. I'm kind of living my best life, which is great.
So come on then, Sunita, what are you looking for from the agency? What's your criteria?
Oh my gosh, well, you know, he's got to be big and strong enough to turn me on. Big blue eye. No, actually, he's just got to be, well, obviously he's got to be gorgeous, but he's got to be gorgeous inside and out. He's got to be fun, kind, generous, intelligent, adventurous. I'm so excited because I've been single for 8 years now, I think it is. So, and I was happily single. And then I actually reached a point where I was thinking it'd be nice to have someone. Love my girlfriends, I love my gay husbands and all of that. But it'd be nice to have a romantic partner again.
There we are, Sunita there with more on what's coming up for her. Now, recent reports have shown couples going through the divorce process are struggling to leave the marital home because of the cost of living crisis. In a bid to cut down on the costs of separation, barristers Samantha Woodham and Harry Gates started the first regulated law firm in England where a separating couple could use the same divorce lawyer. Well, they've been telling me how they are seeing the current financial climate impact the way people are dividing their assets and managing their split.
It's hard to tell in some ways because we've had so many crises recently, and I'm thinking of the pandemic mainly, that it's difficult to know where divorce has been sped up and where it's been slowed down. Certainly after the pandemic ended and all the restrictions on the movement ended, divorce picked up a bit because people weren't able to get divorced before it, and now we're suddenly plunged into a new cost of living crisis. It's quite difficult to know where one ends and then one begins. So I think we'll have to wait and see really what the true effect of the cost of living crisis is on people's decision to divorce.
Why do you think the way that you work can be better for all involved?
I think what's happening with cost of living crisis, but generally, is that people are much more savvy about divorce. You know, they want to budget for divorce. They don't want open-ended costs. They don't want the divorce process itself to be something which is unaffordable. Yes, they want expertise, but they want it at a sensible, proportionate price. And I think what Harry was saying about impacts of these world events, it is really hard in real time to know what's happening, but there is a real general trend of people being much more, knowledgeable and careful about the way they choose to divorce them. And I think the other thing that we see is that, these sorts of events won't affect the decision to separate because, fundamentally that's an emotional decision. It's not one that's going to be driven by a financial backdrop, but it does affect timing. And so I think what we may see in coming months is couples who are deciding in the long term they want to separate, to perhaps putting a pause on it, unless, there are safety reasons they need to end the marriage, but putting a pause, thinking, well, let's see what happens to interest rates. Let's see what happens to mortgages. Because so much of divorce, when it comes to the financial side, is working out how you fund to households, and how that's going to work practically. And if mortgage capacity is being affected at the moment, it may be that we'll see couples thinking, okay, you know what, we're going to leave this a few months, see what happens with the market, and then it impacts on their timing. The actual decision to divorce, I think, is something that's very emotional, but taken over a long period of time, and is impacted by a sort of financial backdrop. In terms of mental health, it's looking at the impact of conflict. It's thinking, how can we manage this? Can we stay in the same home knowing we're going to separate and still be civilized to each other? And lots of couples can, but for some, it spills over and they can't anymore. And there's plenty of research out there about the impact of children when their parents are divorcing. It's not the divorce itself that's the problem, it's the way it's managed, it's the exposure to parental conflict. So certainly, you can overthink actually the economic impact and think we're going to sit tight in the same home because we might get a better interest rate in 6 months' time. But if that's creating a situation which is making adults deeply miserable, and then that's having an impact on any children in the home, actually you're thinking, prioritise our mental health, prioritise the welfare of the children, and perhaps move somewhere more modest in the short term whilst the economic situation stabilises.
There we are, Samantha and Harry there. You're watching London Live News with Alicia Edwards. A reminder of our top story coming up after the break. Plus, marking its 40th year, Goldsmiths Fair is back with more jewellery in the capital.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Hello there, welcome back. A reminder of some of our main stories for the capital today. An investigation has been launched after one of Stephen Lawrence's killers reportedly got hold of a mobile phone and sent selfies in his cell to friends outside. David Norris has been placed in segregation and the Ministry of Justice has confirmed it is investigating the alleged security breach, warning that prisoners found with phones can expect longer jail terms. 5 men were arrested over the murder of 18-year-old Stephen Lawrence, who was stabbed to death in Eltham in 1993. David Norris and Gary Dobson were given life sentences in 2012 after being found guilty of murder. The opening date for the Elizabeth line at Bond Street Station has finally been revealed. Subject to final approvals, the Central London station will begin taking passengers from the 24th of October. It will offer greater access to the West End with entrances at Hanover Square and Davies Street. To begin with, train services will run every 5 minutes. 2 men have been found guilty of murder after they broke into a cannabis factory and attacked the occupant. Shaddai Smith and Jason Sabran were found guilty of the murder of 21-year-old Renatu Gessi. The court heard how both men had been part of a gang who targeted a property in Hounslow. They now await sentencing. A forensic artist has created this image of a woman whose body was pulled from the Thames by Vauxhall Bridge 45 years ago today and has never been identified. Missing Persons charity Locate International worked with an artist, Hugh Morrison, to create the image using photographs which were taken at the scene. The woman's body was found at the bottom of the stairs leading to the South Bank by Vauxhall Bridge. The pound has tumbled again today after the International Monetary Fund criticised the government over its plan for tax cuts. In an extraordinary statement, the IMF said the proposal was likely to increase inequality and adds to pressures pushing up prices, urging the Chancellor to re-evaluate. In another unprecedented move, the Bank of England also launched an emergency UK government bond buying programme today to prevent borrowing costs from spiralling out of control. The bank announced it was stepping in to buy government bonds at an urgent pace. The pound tumbled again to $1.05, almost 1.6% against the dollar after climbing back to around 1.08 yesterday, following the initial nosedive on Monday. The withdrawal of mortgage products hit unprecedented levels overnight, according to Analysys Moneyfacts, a financial information service which said that 935 mortgage products were taken off the shelf compared with a day earlier. The Chancellor has previously insisted he's confident his tax-cutting strategy will deliver economic growth, while Sir Keir Starmer said the Tories had completely lost control. Rail passengers are being urged only to travel if necessary on Saturday because of strike action. Members of the RMT, ASLEF, Unite and the TSSA will stage a coordinated walkout, causing huge disruption to services. A reduced timetable has been published showing that just 11% of rail services will run, with some areas having no trains at all. It will be the first time the unions have walked out on the same day, so services will be more significantly disrupted than on previous strike days. Londoners have been urged to get their flu and COVID booster vaccines, as public health experts have warned of an unpredictable winter. The capital's regional director of public health called on those eligible to come forward for their jab, amid fears that rising cases of both viruses could put pressure on the NHS. It comes as the capital continues to lag behind other regions when it comes to COVID vaccination. The RSPCA is appealing for information after 5 puppies, thought to be from 2 separate litters, were found abandoned in South London. They were shut inside a clear plastic box with red handles and a crack on the lid in Buckfast Road in Morden on Sunday. The puppies were rushed into RSPCA care, with 2 believed to be less than 1 week old as their eyes were still closed. The charity is now appealing for more information. Now, Goldsmiths Fair is back and marking its 40th anniversary this week, bringing together 136 of the UK's goldsmiths and jewellers. From wirework to 3D printing, exhibitors combine ancient techniques with modern-day technologies. Well, Hebe spoke to 2 jewellery makers exhibiting their work this week.
This is the 3rd time I've done the Goldsmiths Fair, and this year I am showing work that's made from recycled gold, from recycled diamonds and recycled other stones, plus stones that have been found in Scotland and then cut by me in London. So everything's local and non-mined.
I'm now in the 11th year at Goldsmiths Fair, which is a wonderful fair. It's got makers from all over the UK, independent small makers, and it's such an honor to be showing at this fair in the glorious Goldsmiths Hall, which already by itself is well worth a visit. I make rather sculptural jewelry, as you can maybe tell, and I work, like Sean, in recycled metals. This is recycled silver, but I work also in fair trade gold, 18 karat. And yeah, I was one of the first in the UK to work with fair trade gold. That was in 2011. The UK was the very first country to introduce it. And now there are makers all over the world working with fair trade and fair mined gold.
And Sean, tell me a bit about why it's so important for you to stay sustainable and local as well.
People work in dangerous conditions, and they work in dangerous conditions in mines and also in factories. So the way that I work is to try and avoid those conditions for people by, like Uti was saying, working responsibly and locally. So everything's traceable, and I can trace it back to places that I know are safe spaces. So the Scottish beaches where these pebbles are collected, obviously nobody's been harmed collecting a pebble off a beach. And likewise, the diamonds that I use, they may have been used several times in jewellery before. So none of the problems that is caused by mining, both to people and to the environment, has had to reoccur. The other thing about using responsibly sourced materials and those that are recycled is that you've saved 95% of the energy costs when using recycled materials. You don't have to pay for any of the refining, you don't have to pay for any of the fine work cutting stones, you don't have to pay for any transportation, and the carbon footprint, the carbon costs are very, very low as well.
Tell me a bit more about the fair itself, what kind of makers it brings together and what it stands for.
The Goldsmiths Fair is a marvellous, now 40-year-old institution that has championed makers, goldsmiths and silversmiths who work in the UK. Very small scale. I think the limit to the number of people working in the companies that mainly individuals actually who show at the Goldsmiths Fair, but the largest companies are up to about 7 or 8 people, I believe. So it supports tiny companies and really champions them.
And at Goldsmiths, you find things that you just don't find at all at the high street. You don't find those works. They're amazing creativity. They're some of the most amazing makers working in the UK, international makers working in the UK today. You can discover, you can talk to the makers if you wanted something specific. So you can also ask where the provenance is from. You know, we can tell you exactly. And that's the beauty. It's something, I mean, jewelry is something so individual. It's such a beautiful story to know where the materials come from, to know who the makers are, and then to actually know who the people are who are wearing it. So it's a beautiful story, and it's all about connections.
There we go, that will be on until the 9th of October in Goldsmiths Hall. Time for a quick break now, but don't go anywhere because coming up...
We are the Choir of Mind. So wake me up when it's all over. When I'm wiser.
The only London show to have a working pub on the stage. We'll hear from one of the leads in The Choir of Man as the show returns to the West End.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
with stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Hello there, welcome back. You're watching London Live News at 6. Now, reggae musician and former Crouch End resident Shiloh Clark received more than 1.5 million streams on his song Freedom Will Reign, written as a plea to the public about the threat of climate change after it was backed by Extinction Rebellion. Well, his latest single, Million Things, represents a similar call to action, urging people to make a change today. Well, Paul spoke to Shiloh about the message behind his new single.
Been interested in environmental issues for 30 years. I went and lived in the hills with countrymen in the West Indies, and it was something that they were talking about back then, that we really need to be one with our land and you know, really take care of it, eat from the land, and it started then. And then I started to recognise when I came back to England, I started to recognise subtle changes, and then the topics started changing. People started saying, well, have you noticed the weather? The weather's not. And when they started talking about it, then it all came back to me that these countrymen were talking about this 30 years ago, that this was going to happen.
Tomorrow's another day. Your connection to Extinction Rebellion, how did that come about?
It came about because I noticed that they were the only people, apart from Greenpeace, who were actually challenging the way that we live and asking for change. I have to say now that I don't agree with everything that Extinction Rebellion does, you know, especially when they're gluing themselves to roads and stopping people from going to work. In this environment, it's not very good. Everyone's suffering because of high inflation and such. But the fact that they are actually challenging and raising awareness, I'm 100% behind. I'm also a proud member of Music Declares Emergency, and Music Declares Emergency goes about a different way by lobbying people and in Parliament, which I think is, you know, needs doing. It needs to continue doing, you know, happening.
We're doing this thing my way. You better know there's a million things I could change. Though I might change tomorrow. Tomorrow's another day. Your new song, A Million Things. What's the message behind this song, or the messages behind this song? Talk about, you know, the creative process that you had in coming up with these lyrics.
It was written by my writing partner on this song, which is Lee Malin, and we rejigged it. And a million things. I think every human being could say that about themselves. There's a million things that you could change about yourself, but it's no use waiting for tomorrow. You've got to do it today. So if you want to change something tomorrow, you have to be moving today to get it changed. Yeah, a million things. If everyone sings it, it relates to everyone themselves, and it's got a different meaning to every person that sings it. So a million things. Everyone has possibly got, not maybe a million, but at least one thing they would like to change about themselves. And that's what that song's about in regards to our human race. You know, there's a million things that we could change, but we need to focus on the environment at the moment, because this is where we live, and without this, we have nothing.
Why do you think, you know, the kind of music you make really works to convey these messages?
We're not a political faction, you know, we're nothing like that. It's just to raise awareness with a bit of happiness, you know, a bit of positivity about the future, rather than doom and gloom, there's nothing we can do, or look at this conspiracy, that conspiracy. Nonsense. We need to really have some positive, start listening to each other and be positive, say a kind word to each other, be positive to each other, and that way we'll see the change.
There we go, that was Shiloh Clark, whose new single, Million Things, is out now. Right, more music on the way. The Olivier-nominated show, which brings the pub to the stage, is returning to the Arts Theatre. Having toured the world and had 3 sellout seasons at the Sydney Opera House, The Choir of Man is as much a concert as it is a stage show, while the all-male cast contains a mix of tap dancers, poets, instrumentalists and singers. And we spoke to one of them, Ben Norris, ahead of the production's return.
We are the Choir of Man. So wake me up when it's all over. When I'm wiser.
It's basically a night out in your local pub with songs, bit of dancing, lots of beer. The stage has a real working bar on it, so audiences can come up on stage before the show and get a pint on the house and have a chat with the cast. And then there's different points throughout the show where we kind of give out more beers and throw crisps out and that sort of thing. So it's kind of in those moments deliberately very sort of chaotic and hopefully feels like, you know, a joyous knees up lock-in kind of vibe. And then beyond that, it's got sort of reflections on pub culture and community spaces more generally, you know, celebrating pubs and paying homage to those that we've lost during lockdown, not just pubs, but like I said, anywhere where people kind of go to gather, the things that we couldn't do during the pandemic, and also reflections on male mental health and kind of the importance of being there for your mates, whether it's to have a completely escapist night out, like our show is in large parts, or whether it's to put an arm around someone and say, hey, listen, you know, if you need a chat, I'm here for that chat. It doesn't really have a story. It just has these little moments of reflection that pepper the songs. And then songs wise, there's sort of something for everybody, really. There's well-known hits from like a range of different genres, a range of different decades. The pandemic and then the cost of living crisis that we're in and that is only going to get worse for so many people is really going to exacerbate those things. Feelings of isolation, feelings of shame, I think particularly for lots of working class men who perhaps are still the breadwinners in their household or aspire to be, the squeeze that's going to hit so many families this winter is going to lead to all sorts of psychological and emotional repercussions as well as financial, I think, and just to give people permission to broaden the bandwidth of what being a man is. And that absolutely can be going out and getting drunk and going to the football and you know, working 9 to 5 and earning a living, but it can, and I think it has to be all those other things as well, because sadly still the biggest killer of men under the age of 45 is suicide. And although the show, you know, it doesn't go there too explicitly or for too long. Like, we felt it's important to touch on this. It's something that lots of us in the cast have experienced, and it's something that we try and live out as a company in the rehearsal room. I've needed an arm around me, and others have needed an arm around them, and we bring ourselves to the show. There's a bit where we sort of introduce who we are really, like behind the characters, and each of those bits is personal to the actor, where they're from, what home means to them. Lots of people have lost people, particularly parents, and you know, there's a real kind of vulnerability in that. So we have to be there for each other, and I think it's what makes this show special, because it feels that bit more real. We're not just stepping into a part. It's got a little bit of us in it.
There we go, that was Ben Norris, who stars in The Choir of Man, which opens once again at the Arts Theatre from Saturday and runs all the way through until February. Right, it's time for a quick check on the weather now. It's dropping down to 10 degrees overnight, but staying dry for the most part. The rain making an appearance just in time for rush hour tomorrow, clearing by lunchtime, making way for some sunny spells in the afternoon, highs of 15 degrees. Looking ahead to Friday, a couple of degrees warmer, but more rain on the way for Friday evening. Some downpours overnight into Saturday, clearing again by the afternoon, but a bright and sunny day expected on Sunday, highs of 18 degrees. That's the day to be out and about if you've got any plans this weekend. And that's all from this evening. Thank you for watching. For more updates throughout the day, do follow our social channels at London Live. From all of us here, have a lovely evening, and we'll see you back here tomorrow at 6.